were you so attracted to that story?
I love Patricia Highsmith's writing. I think she's ripe for cinematic invention, I think, because all her characters have secrets. They've got very rich, often very dangerous interior lives. And of course, in this film, there's a gun in it, but the crime is the love that the two women feel for one another, because it's set in the 50s when that love is illegal.
And was it the most romantic film you've ever made?
I think it might be one of the most romantic films I've ever made. I mean, one of my all-time favourite films I keep returning to is Brief Encounter, and there's a kind of an architecture to Carol where it's a very, very different film, where you see a scene that you know nothing about the characters in the beginning, and you return to that scene at the end knowing full well what is happening between every pause and every nuance, and so you shift your perspective, which is a very powerful device, I think. But it's deeply romantic, and I do think that an audience forgets the gender of the two protagonists who are falling in love, because in the end the film is about falling in love.
And because it seems to me that, quite notably with your career, you've avoided playing the love interest or the girlfriend of a traditional leading man. Has that been an intentional decision and choice?
I don't know that I was that girl necessarily, maybe because I wasn't interested. But, I've played wives, I've played mothers, and then you try and flesh those things out to make them become as interesting as you possibly can. The old adage there's no small role, only small actors, that kept being bashed into us at drama school. And, the opportunity to work with a director when you're playing a cameo or, a supporting role, that doesn't bother me. It's about being part of the conversation. But, yes, I've tried to do things that, that I'm interested in, because I think if you're not engaged as an actor, then you've got no chance in engaging an audience.
Sure. Who do you think, living or dead, wrote the best female characters?
I think there's some pretty extraordinary Shakespearean women. I find Chekhovian women compelling, and I think there's no small roles in those that playwright has written. But I think Highsmith, in a way, even when she was writing men, she was writing women.
Do you think Carol is a feminist film?
I think the film is not political, and I think that's partly to do with the time in which we're viewing it. If we'd viewed it 15, 20 years ago, perhaps it would have been a feminist film. Not necessarily because of the subject, but because there's so many women involved in getting the film realised, and it's about, that it would have been pointed to. But we're still referring to the fact that there's two women at the lead, and there's female producers, and in the context of the British the London Film Festival, where women are placed front and centre, it does sort of politicise the cinematic offerings. But I think all the women involved are just feminists, but they're not. It's not a piece of agitprop.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Are you a feminist?
Yes, absolutely.
And because women in Hollywood are beginning to talk about sexism in the industry in terms of the gender pay gap.
No, I think women have been talking about it for years.
Okay.
I just think it was referred to as whinging, even 5 years ago. And now it's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous that women don't receive equal pay for equal work. And frankly, the film industry is no different than any other industry. It's across all industries. And it's just something that needs to be rectified. It needs to be rectified today. It's not... Equality is equality. There's no such thing as partial equality, and you can't change workplace culture until you get to first base, which I thought we did when we got the vote. I thought it's like, the nuclear question. I thought we'd solved that in the 80s, but here we are, with climate change, still building nuclear reactors, and you can't dispose of nuclear waste safely. I thought we'd had that conversation. It's just ridiculous, because it's, if we're going to progress as a species, then we have to keep progressing, not reverting to the same dialogue.
But it feels like people are being listened to now, I think.
I think because there's a critical mass of women across all industries, not just in the film industry, and it's pan-generational as well, I think, that it's... so there's a critical mass of women keeping it on the agenda and refusing to take it off the agenda now. And so hopefully those changes will finally take place. Because, you know, where there is, you know, a social and political instability, you can pretty much assume that that women are being, without using too violent a word, oppressed.
And what do you hope will have changed in our society by the time your daughter becomes an adult?
That we won't be having this conversation. We'll be having a far more creative conversation. This is a very practical conversation, and which is good because practical things can be solved.
Do you like doing the red carpet? Do you like getting dressed up?
I do. I like costume. I've always liked costume. And, you know, you don't get to wear those things very often. And, you know, it's a pageant. And something I learnt from running a theatre company is it's great to create a sense of event around cultural enterprises like film, you know, like visual arts, like the theatre. People love a sense of event. You know, it's exciting. But when it becomes more important than the work itself, then it's a little bit frustrating.